Hey guys, just a very quick one before we dive into this episode. If you want to learn from SaaS VPs and founders on how to scale in sales, marketing, and customer success with lessons from companies like Atlassian, Olark, Vistia, and way more, you can't miss this event. We're hosting and organizing a summit online just specifically for B2B SaaS businesses. So if you go to https://b2bsaassummit.com, you can register for free to all the sessions that we have. It's going to happen first week of October. I can't wait until it starts, and hopefully I'll see you there. b2bsaassummit.com. Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of QuickMail.io.
Hey, and this is Jack from emailsthatsell.com.
Hey, today is part one of a new series called Growth Chat, where Jack and I are putting ourselves in the shoes of real businesses and crafting winning cold outreach strategies from scratch. From small shops to massive companies, we'll be covering how to scale using new angles, advanced prospecting, and epic value propositions. Get ready for a massive show, high on actionable takeaways and inspiration to draw from for your own business, no matter which industry you're trying to dominate. Enjoy.
What are we here to discuss today, Jeremy?
Yeah, Jack and I just gave ourselves a challenge of looking across different industries, different type of businesses, and figuring out, are the value offerings going to be the same, for different industry, or are we going to vary drastically? Or what's your take basically on, crafting a really good value proposition depending on the industry we're in and where we're at?
And what a great discussion to do a deep dive on at this point in the podcast, because value propositions or the offer that you put into your cold email, it's super important. I mean, it's one of these make or break elements in a cold email campaign. So I'm hoping after this discussion on value propositions, it's going to give you some more firepower to figure out what else you could say in your cold emails to really make it obvious that if the prospect responds, they're going to get a huge benefit. They're going to want to reply and talk to you about XYZ because your value prop is perfect.
Yeah, and bear in mind that even for we may be talking maybe about one specific segment of industry, a lot of the tactic or strategies even of how to craft a good offering will be applicable to a lot of different businesses in that situation, more or less. It doesn't have to be the same industry exactly.
That's very true. But in regards to industries, I've had clients who say, hey, Jack, we're not in some cool tech industry. I'm actually a pretty boring company. Their words, not mine. And, how would you go selling payroll services or HR outsource or some of the harder to come up with a kind of one-liner that's going to get a cold prospect to say, wait a minute, I need to talk to these people. And so we've got a nice mix here, I believe, of industries that range from, well, actually, there isn't many exciting tech stuff involved here, maybe with the exception of one. So tech listeners, you got something coming your way too. But Jeremy, maybe we can give them an overview of what they can expect in the cast, what industries we'll cover.
And bear in mind that if you like that, just let us know, podcast@quickmail.io, and we'll just do more of them. You could see it as a small tear down kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, or rapid fire. That may actually be some cool getting your juice flowing when it comes to
that's right,
crafting different offering.
For specific businesses, even the ones that use the word again, boring, that, maybe can be a little more challenging to come up with a compelling reason for that prospect to get back to.
Yeah, so we're gonna have some legal stuff, some boring industries. So we're gonna we touch on that. Really big, really small.
Yeah.
So we got a bit for everyone.
That's true. At this point, I believe it is time that we dive in and start talking about value props. How you and I would craft a value prop for one of these 6 different industries, and we'll just tackle them one at a time, just like a teardown.
Let's go.
All right. Jeremy, the one that you're going to share first with us today, imagine you are a consultant. Let's get specific here. Let's say that you are a consultant that helps SaaS companies reduce churn. It's a real job position. It's quite popular today.
It's not a fake one.
How would you go about crafting a value proposition for a churn consultant? And keep in mind, we're going after the faster growing software companies out there.
I will start considering my own personal position. As in, am I just starting to be a consultant in this industry? So basically, do I need to build some credential? Do I need to build my network? If so, I probably would recommend you find a tool that tackles that already, and you try to reach out to those tools to get a position in order to gain a lot of insight. Because if you want to be a consultant, my take on it will be you need to have seen a lot of different businesses in order to be able to adapt your solution to the current businesses you're looking at. So there are stuff like Raft.io and other tools out there that do specifically tackle churn. So my first approach will actually be to try to cold email those companies in order to figure out if there are any opening, can I help one way or another in order to just get a little bit of experience under my belt. That would be probably my first approach.
Okay, so if I'm seeing a couple steps into the future, if you get a yes from one of these churn expert companies, your future campaigns can say, and we've worked with companies like Raft in order to help these huge companies reduce churn, right? That's what we're going for. It's sort of a quick win that's going to help add to our credibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And then from that point on, you could probably like step on top of their own client list. Let's say, for example, they're serving, I don't know, Intercom, for example. Then I will be able to do like a mini case study saying, hey, by the way, I help Intercom reduce their churn by half in less than 6 months. And that could be done through installation of that software. And that's totally fine. That's what I mean by the mini case study. It's just a one-liner that means something. And then you could address this to companies exactly like Intercom that from a fact will actually benefit from this type of approach.
I love that you're picking the most difficult scenario for this churn consultant. If they were just starting out, that's the hard stuff. That's the position that you may, before this cast, have been thinking, well, I'm not ready for cold email because I don't have any good case studies to share. But gold from Jeremy, how to get that first case study under your belt.
The other thing is, if you don't do something like that, it's going to be very, very difficult to find a reason for that company to allocate resource to you. Because ideas, they come like a dozen, a dime a dozen. It's only going to be coming with a sort of implementation. So really it comes better as like, hey, just wanted to figure out if churn is a priority for you this quarter. It happened that I've been helping a few companies install churn software. You don't even need to have a relationship with that software. It'll be like, hey, I'm a MailChimp expert, and therefore I can come and help you with newsletter. Then here it'll be like, hey, I'm a Raft.io expert, and that's been proven to reduce churn. I can come and help you installing that. And as you install it, then maybe you'll get some more information and ideas to actually go and help other companies. And that's probably how I would do that.
And this is kind of fun because now I'm thinking about prospecting. Now that we've gotten specific here with targeting companies that may or may not be using Raft, I'm thinking, well, you could have one campaign for companies already using Raft and explain to them that you're an expert with proven track record and help them get the most out of the tool. And then you could have another campaign for companies that aren't using any kind of churn software. And that may be better on one hand because they probably have the most room for improvement. However, and something I'm really careful about is they're not currently spending money on churn from what we can see. So I'm not entirely sure that's a hotter list.
You're absolutely right. At the same time, churn is directly correlated to money. So you're basically saying them like, let me help you lose less money kind of thing. So
there you go.
It's not like if, do you want to try a different channel or stuff like that, which is a bit more complicated.
More risky.
Everyone has churn at the end.
That's super helpful. I'm wondering, I haven't seen your notes, but did you think through any scenarios where if you were maybe an established churn consultant, I mean, that's probably the easier campaign to put together, right?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I haven't said as well is obviously we're going to go hyper-personalization, which means you're going to select a certain number of companies you want to go after. Because bear in mind, we're not like selling something like for, $30.
Peanuts. Yeah.
Right. So it's going to be like seizable, amounts of money that you're going to charge those people. And then they probably will have objections thinking like, oh, but how much resource do I need to allocate to that? So if you use a software, it could just be like, hey, just drop this JavaScript stuff and then I'll take it from here.
That's cool.
A super simple value proposition. But it could also be you testing their own cancellation process and just saying like, hey, I noticed a few things that could easily reduce the churn by half. Are you interested in jumping on a call? And then I explain you how I do that. And then you get another opportunity to actually just upsell your service specifically.
So let's get very specific here on the value prop. This is something you're suggesting is you should actually do the procedure for canceling the product.
I agree.
And if there are errors, letting that company know that a quick phone call with you could expose these errors that have been proven to, increase churn. So are we saying that the offer, the value prop is would you call it like a free consult where you just spill all of the details on how they can improve their cancellation process and therefore reduce churn?
There's a few ways you can consider things at this stage. First one is obviously we talk about it a long time. Just don't actually come with like pointing fingers on problems.
Right.
Always use the fox on the crow. It's like, hey, you got an amazing product. I'm sure, we can tweak this particular side of the funnel. And one of the value prop would be like, hey, let's jump on a 15 minutes call. Happy to, give as much knowledge as I know. And then the idea here, and that's tricky, is that you're going to basically tell them everything, but they're going to feel overwhelmed with all the implementation. And so therefore, you could say, if you don't want to find someone who is going to be dedicated to that, because everyone's short on resource, in companies.
Yeah.
Then, I'm happy to provide those services that I can do that. And by then, you should have built enough trust. So it's okay when it's like very intensive in terms of resources. But if you only say like, hey, you just need to drop that JavaScript and then just do it, it's just going to be like slightly awkward in a sense that, okay, thank you, and then off we go.
Well, I have a feeling that churn reduction is much more complex than dropping JavaScript. I'm thinking,
I agree.
Even if there exists a JavaScript line or two that I can drop into my site and therefore reduce churn, I'm going back to that person who suggested it and say, okay, that worked. What else do you have for me? And I can tell you, since 2014, I can think of one person who did not ask me, okay, so that was really interesting. What do you guys do? How can you help us a little bit more? Like on some of these calls where I sort of just
dropping gems.
Yeah, just sort of mind meld with them, brainstorm with them until they're totally knackered out with all these good ideas that I've dropped. Like it always happens where there's a pause after you've given a ton of value. And then from the other line, they say, okay, wow, so this is good. What else? And then they tell you what they need. And they almost transition for the sale for you. This is, I think, like the more elegant, beautiful part of sales that makes it all fun and worthwhile. So I would not try this approach with fear. You should have confidence that if you really can help them, they're going to come to you for more. Because at the end of the day, this is a very big deal.
That's right.
So value prop number one, help them with one small aspect of their churn issue on a quick call.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be everything. It could be like, hey, churn is a big topic. There's a lot of things from, customer success to, whatever. Let me help you tackle the very easy part right now so you can get like a most value out of those 20 minutes.
Yep.
Here's how you can very quickly address that small part.
Yeah.
And if you love that, we've been working with a lot of companies in your space. So there's a lot of know-how and experiments that we did that fail and succeed. So we can save you a ton of time implementing that. And if you're happy to work with us, then, here is your price list or whatever kind of thing. And let's reschedule another call if you're interested. But right now, let's look into, tackling only this cancellation part, for example.
Love it, Jeremy. Well done.
Cool. Your turn, I believe.
I'm in the hot seat. Yeah. So who do I got?
I think it's last year, there was like GDPR coming up, and immediately after, British Airways being like slap on the finger really, really badly for sending a marketing piece of email. So I'm going to choose that boring industry about big company.
Corporate airline.
Yeah, corporate airline. That's it. High on branding, on legal and stuff. So lots of red tape. And they're looking to get new customers because they're opening a new route between, let's say, London and Tokyo or London and Osaka.
Yep. Okay.
And they want to be extremely competitive on this one. So they're willing to slash the price. But how are they going to plan their offering so it's well received and, not flagged as spam and so on? So how would you go about that?
Well, first of all, this should be pretty easy because British Airways is such a reputable airline.
The one that is on strike, actually, at the moment. That's right.
I kid about things, but let's talk about this value proposition. So if I'm British Airways and I'm looking to fill some seats for a new route, I would focus my attention on large companies that do a lot of business between these two cities.
Very cool.
There's a chance that there's a lot of opportunity for repeat sales if we can just get our foot in the door with the right group of organizations. So the first thing I do, I start building a list of companies with offices in both of these cities. And for prospecting nerds out there, I would probably do this by first generating a huge list of companies of a certain size. Let's call it minimum 5,000 employees. And they either have headquarters in Osaka or headquarters in London. And then
brilliant.
That's going to be a huge, huge list. Maybe we're talking, 5 or 10, 15,000 companies that match.
Oh, you think so? I mean, it will depend on the route. That's true.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say there's 5,000 companies that are of a certain size and in these two cities.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, I'm crawling all of their websites and I'm extracting a snippet of text that has a mention of the other city. In case on their website, it mentions offices in London and Osaka, or, London and Tokyo may be a little bit more common. So, and then finally, I'd have a VA grab the much smaller group of domains from large companies that mention both cities in their contact page. Okay, so we're left with a smaller list of companies that probably are flying back and forth to these cities. Now what? I would reach out to finance people. So I'm thinking like CFO, or maybe a little bit lower, but still in charge of revenue of, especially if they're publicly traded. I'm thinking the right finance person would really be excited about a chance to save on these flights that they are incurring costs for month after month after month. Okay, so here's the offer. Jeremy, I've got a flight voucher ready for QuickMail because we're promoting our new route from London to Osaka for business travelers. It would save QuickMail about 50% of the travel expenses from now until Christmas, about 3 months. And then here's the offer. Who do you think I should send this flight voucher to?
Nice.
Okay. Pick it apart. What do you think?
I'm buying.
You're buying. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Going to Osaka, I'm buying anyway.
Yeah, that's true. In short, the value prop I'm putting together is, let's just cut through everything. And if we can afford to make a promotion out of this flight, let's find the right people and give them this voucher. And the trick, though, is finding the person responsible for purchasing business flights. So I'm going finance department. Any comment worthy on the value prop or the targeting?
I love it. One angle that I was thinking of is targeting companies who have effectively, offices in both, and actually contacting the head of HR or something like that, saying like, would your company benefit from those two headquarters, meeting up?
Interesting.
Because we got a great price at the moment. It's, 50% below market price or whatever, because
that's interesting.
We're offering, I love the idea of the voucher as well. I can steal that as well. I think it's a good one.
Yeah. Okay.
And then basically, telling them like you would save XYZ, would your company actually benefit from such meeting in person? Something like that, because maybe now is the time.
Okay. What about this? So what about getting a list of the right sized companies in those two cities and then going on their Twitter page for the businesses and looking for the hashtag like company retreat?
Yeah, exactly.
For those companies that are spending money on sending employees abroad to have meetings, offsites, maybe targeting them and saying, hey, you're in London. Why not do your next offsite in Osaka? We're having crazy discounts for our business travelers. Would you be interested?
Exactly. Yeah. I was thinking that. So going after the UK company who do that.
I'll say this. It's very difficult to do better than asking who should we send a voucher to if you're messaging someone who's already spending money doing that exact same thing.
That's right.
The only thing that may be worth discussing is like the real value for British Airways in this campaign would be that they like the service and they decide, okay, we're going to use British Airways, and they become a member of their loyalty program because they've got their foot in the door, they had a good experience. But that's where I think the money is going to come for a company like this.
I think we're missing something actually from the prospecting side. They probably already have clients that fly maybe to Tokyo or to other cities and then take the bullet train to actually go to Osaka or some stuff like that. So I will probably look into my own customer list already to identify some of those companies who regularly travel. Maybe they travel first class.
Wow. Yeah.
Or maybe they don't travel first class, and then we could so therefore upsell them. Like you could go directly to Osaka in first class for the price of the current economy place.
Interesting. That would be an easy sale to someone who's interested in business class. Like I said, already paying money. You're essentially giving the perfect person a much better buy for the same amount of money, maybe a little bit less.
Maybe it's cannibalizing our own own crowd here at this stage. I don't know. At the same time, it's just like maybe they're holding off on the number of people they can fly because of that. So that could be one thing.
That's true. So I think the takeaway here is instead of just doing a shotgun campaign to all kinds of companies in London or Osaka, much better to take some time to actually build a list of companies that are likely spending money on these travel fees. And next, cut through the noise with an offer with a voucher that's ready to save them money. And that's probably the best value prop I can come up with for this one.
Yeah, I mean, here the value proposition is pretty obvious, is we're going to save you money.
On the flights you're already spending. But I think that's a huge point.
Exactly.
Like we talk about list and copy all the time. And if you've been listening for a long time, you know that we're going to say list is more important. And this is a classic example. Is if you can talk to the right person, a lot of the work has been done. They know it's relevant. I think that's why list is important. That's why personalization helps, because it's making the email more relevant to the prospect.
Yeah, think about it. The actual customer you want to reach out are the people already doing London, Osaka with a different airline.
Yeah, I mean, the perfect list is if you could download all of the customers in the last 30 days who bought tickets in business class on Virgin.
That's right.
That is impossible to do better. But this is hopefully the second best thing.
The next one.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, cool. A lot of good stuff covered. Now, shall we move on to your next one?
All right, let's do it.
Okay, Jeremy. So it's time to put yourself in another pair of shoes here.
All right.
Let's say you are a member. Let's say your business development for a project management tool for video game developers. And I know that's up your wheelhouse because you know the industry well, but let's make it a little bit tougher. And I'll mention that, hey, this project management tool, it's just $30 a month. So I can't really afford to do anything crazy in my offer in terms of financial benefit or heavy discounts. So what would you do?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. First of all, video game was like 10 years ago for me, so I'm sure the industry moved a bit since then. But anyway, yeah, that's tough. I think the company will go out of business. I wouldn't even, consider working for them.
Oh, no. Okay, but pretend this is a good idea.
No, that's
that
fine.
I came up with.
I'm going to take the challenge, let's say. I think I will try to find a slightly different road than cold email per se in the first phase. So what I mean by that is I would probably explore a more freemium version type of thing, so it gets adopted by a lot of people. So a classical example was 3ds Max, which is a 3D design software. They actually gave schools access to this for free or really peanuts and sold it for a lot of money once people enter the job market. So a lot of the students were actually
trained. Okay, that's genius.
On that software. And they knew they had like plenty of hacked version of that software, and they kind of like helped propagate that to some extent, one way or another. So, if you couple that, like lots of people have a hack version, which you can consider as a freemium version for non-business type of people.
True.
And then on top of that, everyone gets educated and formed on it or trained on it. That means you pretty much got the market for yourself as soon as they enter the workspace. So I will definitely do a freemium version, a student version for free, target schools right away. But here we're like in a long game. I'm like playing like 5 years, 10 years, but I want to be number one on that market.
No, but that's still a great idea. I mean, I think listeners who are serious about cold email and their businesses know that it's not like a 2-week thing. You set it up, you run it, you're done. It's
Is it not?
No, but I think.
Why am I listening to this show then, Jack? Come on.
you know how it is. It's sales are all about relationships. So any campaign that can get you the foot in the door with the right kind of prospect that's hopefully going to be a happy customer for years, it makes a lot of financial sense to sort of court them over the long run, even if it's a freemium version to schools, which is a killer idea. So does that mean your value prop in step one would be, let me let you just finish that thought here.
Sure, I'm going to try it. So I think my first approach, my value proposition will be obviously backed by, we worked with Electronic Arts or, massive studios on establishing the best or making a reference of our software in game design.
Okay.
So I'll be contacting schools, by the way. And then I will be saying like, hey, we believe the future is using our software. We've been designing it with, the biggest names and so on. We want your students to have the best experience possible that is the closest possible to the real work experience. Therefore, we'd like to work with you in figuring out a way to install the software or give free access of those softwares to your student. Is that something that, would appeal to you, or who should I actually talk to about this?
Yeah, giving away free licenses to students sounds like I would have to respond to it if I was in charge of the department at my school. I certainly wouldn't want my students to fall behind if this is what they're saying, the next wave of development. So I wonder if you could almost play a little bit of maybe not scarcity, but just like already companies like EA have adopted this.
That's right.
We want to help this get into the hands of the next wave.
Yeah, we got big plans for the future. We want to accelerate things.
That's a great approach here. I think what we're getting at is if it's difficult to say no, then you've got a very good value prop on your hands. That's probably the test.
Yeah, and bear in mind that I could be like completely off and it could actually just bomb and get crickets. But I think that's an important point actually here is the solution or the value offering that we're giving is like one possible one. And you should really try to A/B test with really radically different value proposition, maybe different market to figure out, where do we get traction here? Where does that resonate?
That's true.
And are we touching on the right point? But if I keep on tweaking the same campaign, even if I don't get any traction at the beginning, just like, yeah, you're going to maybe get a few percentage different. It's very difficult to suddenly rocket up, like hockey stick kind of thing.
Right. So you're saying the big wins are going to come from tweaking this value prop, not just edit the intro, edit the call to action slightly.
Yeah.
Okay. And what would you say, because I'm going to try and get one more nugget from you.
Yeah, I got a different value proposition we could also use.
Oh, even better. Let's go for it. Tell us.
So the second one will be to use the approach that Proof has been using. I was talking to Dave, the co-founder of Proof and CEO of Proof, and he was explaining to me that his goal was to get 100 influencers to use his product. And that makes a lot of sense because if the influencers are using the product, then it makes the product a standard. So he went above and beyond to figure out how can I get those influencers to use my software. And in our case, I'll be as simple as saying like, I want 50 big companies that is the reference to actually use it. And then I could go ahead and then figure out like, okay, what am I willing to offer to them or what will be appealing to them?
Yeah.
To get to use my software so I could use their name so everyone else looking up to them, like small studios and stuff like that, will use that as a reference.
Wow. Okay. So how the heck would you go about that? Because I can think of one or two things that can sweeten the deal, but I want to hear what your thoughts are for like, let's say you could do anything in your power to get EA Sports to adopt this. What would you do?
Easy, but hard at the same time. So what I would do, I would find people who can open the doors at EA. I wouldn't go EA straight away. I would actually find out, do they have investors I know or I can connect with? Do they have basically influential people outside of EA, but has basically their foot in EA?
Yeah. So maybe the retired CEO for EA.
There you go.
That could give you the warm intro. That's maybe, let me get this clear, more approachable than someone doing project management at EA right now.
Yeah. Or I could get to investors who have a big portfolio who can get me that introduction that I need.
Wow.
To the right person within EA. So the decision maker.
Okay.
If it means I have to play golf, then I have to play golf,
Okay, that's great. So do you have a value prop that you would pitch to, let's say, an investor?
Yeah, sure. It's like, hey, we're building this great, fast moving company. We're growing pretty fast. We'd love to get you as an advisor on your board and give you equity, but we'll need to get you open doors for us at EA. So basically make the equity pending on them managing to get you in EA. And if they do so, then they'll earn their equity in your fast growing company, which will only grow faster if EA adopts it. So everyone's winning in this case.
Wow. I love how non-traditional that approach is. It's amazing. I think there's many ways that you can get this going. And I'm happy you had like 3 or 4 examples of non-traditional entry points or value propositions that you could propose to sort of sell the same thing.
Yeah.
You talked about universities and investors where most people may think, going after project managers, that's it.
And the last thing, which is also long game, but I personally don't believe will work as well, is just to go like small independent studios and just pricing it like slowly, that $30 and hoping that those studio will massively grow in. That's sort of like what Unity has been doing kind of thing, like serving all the little guy who can't actually spend or afford enough money to actually build those tools internally and just offer them like a reasonable price. But as soon as they grow, the price just grow exponentially with it. So, there's different approach. I would basically test all 3 and then just figure out which one is actually helping my business to actually grow and make a killing.
Well said, Jeremy. Hey, it's Jack, and we're going to cut it right here. We've still got 3 more value prop case studies left in this growth chat. So stay tuned next week for more cold email inspiration and value proposition ideas. See you then. Hey, cold emailer.
Yeah, you.
If you got some value from this episode, give us a high five by sharing a 2-sentence review on iTunes.
Or Stitcher, or TuneIn. That works too.
It's a quick way to help other growth-minded folks like us find this podcast
so they can send awesome emails
and make everyone's inbox a better place. Thanks.